If you guys hear like ambiguous rumbling outside, there's a little jet show happening. Okay everyone, hello, welcome back to my apartment. Finally back home, just in time for back to school season. Of course, I needed to film a fall themed book rec video. To me, it's a season that brings back like a lot of nostalgia. Like it's actually physically painful and sickening how nostalgic I get during the fall time. And just the urge to like do all of these like seasonal things and just like wanting to become Rory Gilmore, it's sickening. And she and I are like identical twins. So this video is all about books that you have to read for your hot book girl autumn, which is what I'm trying to have. I'm trying to cozy book girl autumn. These are actually gonna be a combination of like books that I've read and I recommend, and then also books that I really want to read really badly. Like they are my fall TBR, like my first book rec that I read and reread every single year during the fall time. It's probably like my most recommended and most reread classic that I think is so underrated. The Adventures and Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. They're more like mini like short stories all compiled. I have like the compilation of it at home. It's like a thick boy. It's like my most prized possession book. I recommend it so much. They're literally the best classics I've ever read in my life. The writing is like old writing, like the way that classics are. But in my opinion, these ones are like pretty easy to like get into. Like once you start reading, you will get used to it and then it'll go by, and they're just so good. Some of them are misses. I feel like two of them or maybe one of them is a miss. I still remember the one called The Engineer's Thumb, and you don't have to read them in particular order. If you don't know what Sherlock Holmes is about, I'll explain, but like come on now. Sherlock Holmes is this detective and John Watson is our narrator. He is a veteran and he's come back to London and he needs like a place to live. He ends up meeting Sherlock Holmes. They end up living together at 221B Baker Street. Sherlock Holmes is like deductive reasoning. We will like observe things and then like be able to like pluck little conclusions out of them and then be able to just like read people and read situations. And it's like so cool. If you know like the BBC series Sherlock, it's like one of my most rewatched TV shows. I rewatch it every single year. By the way, if you like that like deductive reasoning, you should watch Lie to Me. For first time I actually recommend reading one of like the random middle story called The Speckled Band. That's the one that I always recommend to everyone. It's the first one that I read. I think it's like the most straightforward just to get used to the writing and like just to get used to like the structure. The crunchy leaves, reading Sherlock Holmes, like the crisp fall air, like is that not the most vibey thing you've ever heard in your life? Next, we're gonna stick with the mystery vibe. I feel like this one's kind of like a modern classic, which is Agatha Christie and Then There Were None. This is the only Agatha Christie book that I've read, but she's like really well known for her mysteries. I think this is like her most well-known one. All these people come to an island. They each end up dying and you're like trying to figure out who brought them here, who's killing them and everything. If you haven't read it, I feel like it's a good just like foundational read it so that you can say that you've read it. I think it's also a BBC adaptation. One of the actors on that show is so damn fine. It was like so good. Those are it for like semi-classics that I recommend. They're like not the hard kind of classics. Like I'm really not trying to do all that, you know what I mean? Sticking on the mystery theme, the Holly Jackson books, in my head there's like 3 of them. First is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Is that what it's called? It's not A Good Girl's Guide to Mystery. Good Girl's Guide to Murder. That's probably her most popular. It's a trilogy and it recently became adapted into a TV show and it is on Netflix, so you can read it and then you can also watch it. It's about a girl named Pip and she kind of gets obsessed with solving this like cold case about the murder of this girl, and her murder was pinned on her boyfriend, but Pip has always thought that he didn't do it and that he was innocent. So she teams up with his brother to like solve the mystery. I loved the little subplot of romance. That's like my favorite part about all these books, I think. Whoever did the casting for the Good Girl's Guide TV show, we actually owe them all our firstborn. Especially the wardrobe team. Oh, the stylist. Oh, she locked in for that. And then the other one is the reappearance of Rachel Price. We follow a girl, her name is Belle Price, and her mom is Rachel Price, who she went missing when Belle was like a baby. You're kind of following this like documentary crew. Literally during the production, Rachel Price comes back, and now the documentary's like trying to solve what happened, why she disappeared. Again, there's a subplot of romance between Belle and then one of the boys on like the production crew, and he's like really quirky. And then the third one is Five Survive, which I think is her oldest book out of these 3. Let me tell you, this one is my favorite one out of the whole entire bunch. I gave it a 5 stars. This is the kind of book that you binge read in like one afternoon or like one night. It's about these 6 friends who are all going RV camping, but while they're going to the campsite, the RV breaks down in the woods in the middle of the night, and turns out sniper, and the sniper just says, one of you guys has a secret, you know who you are. Also has like my favorite romance little subplot in it, because our main character is a girl named Red, super like kind of fly on the wall. In this case, I feel like the reveal slash plot twist isn't what gagged me the most. I just think like all this series of events, like it's super, it feels like a pressure cooker. It takes place over like less than one night, and they're like in this closed confined space and you don't know what's on the outside of the RV. It was insane. Like, and I love the little romance in it. I was picturing the guy as like 2014 Dylan O'Brien wearing the glasses from like the Intern. I know you know what I mean. Okay, next we're gonna go into the Olivia Blake books. Probably my number one recommendation is The Atlas Six. It's about the characters who kind of are all like magicians, or they kind of like all have special ability, and they all are plucked together to become the Atlas Six. And there's like some kind of like dark academia like competition. Like you really don't know what's happening. You kind of just have to accept that when you go in, you're just gonna be thrown in. Maybe 30 to 40% of what happened in this book to this day don't understand, but that's okay because the characters are interesting, the character dynamics are interesting, the tension is tensioning, the vibes are immaculate. I'm so delusional when I was reading. I was shipping everybody. Olivia Blake is an amazing writer. Then there's also One for My Enemy, especially perfect if you're going into college. It's about these two families, witches, and they've kind of, it's like a Romeo and Juliet situation where they have kind of had like feuds for like literally generations. Like you don't even know how deep it goes. And it starts out with just like the youngest from each family. They're like college students, and they're kind of both sent to like spy on the other person, except the other person doesn't know. And they also don't know that the other person is also a spy. And they're supposed to be like mortal enemies because their family hates each other. Lo and behold, they end up falling in love. I ate that up so much. I loved it. As the story goes on, you get deeper and deeper like into the lore about these two families, and it's actually insane. There's actually so many subplots of romance happening, and they're literally all enemies, forbidden love, and it's so good. Like every single generation, the angst, the tensioning, the pining, the yearning. And I picture the two like main characters who we meet at the beginning, I picture them as Danielle Campbell and Daniel Sharman from the originals when they're Davina and Cole. If you know, you know. I'm obsessed with them. Then the third last book is Masters of Death. I feel like the vibe is kind of like confusion. It was really a trust the process. You just meet all these different characters, and they're kind of all like paranormal characters, a ghost and like the Grim Reaper, like those kind of characters. Death as the entity slash person in this book has like gone missing, and they're kind of all have to work together to try to find him, and they end up being in like a game. The game is like literally never explained, and I didn't understand anything that was happening, but I still ate it up because it was really vibey. The atmosphere, it was so good. I feel like this would be such a good one to read around Halloween time. And the subplots of romance, what you're thinking that it is when you read the synopsis, it's not, and I like when books do that, so I loved it. Okay, next we're gonna get into my dark academia vibe, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. No one has dark academia the way that this dark academia is. Confessions, I never finished this book. I DNF'd it at like, I think like just after the 50% mark, like when stuff starts getting really messed up. So I feel like people either love this book or hate this book. I honestly really enjoyed the vibes, the mystery of it all. Like you're kind of blindsided when you go into it. It kind of follows our main character, and he ends up getting into this like super elitist class at university where there's only like 5 or 6 students that are accepted under this one professor, and they're all like disgustingly rich, filthy rich, snobbish, and you're like not meant to like any of them. Very like Dead Poet Society, I felt like. In my mind, I'm like, they all have wire frame glasses, fluffy brown tousled hair, coats with like the elbow patches, ties and stuff like that. I know that one of these hoes are in love. Tell me who it is. That was my main motivation for reading it. The way that dark academia goes, if you know, is that things get really, really messed up, dark, disturbed. Definitely happens in this book. I feel like that will either draw you in or really turn you off, so you can just read this book and figure out which boat you lie in. And then If We Were Villains by Emma Rio is probably my first dark academia book that I read. I still love it. I always recommend it. It's like the most fall vibey book because it takes place at this Shakespeare actor conservatory. I don't know, I just pronounced actor like that. It's like super cutthroat. My senior year, there's only like 6 or 7 of them, and we're following those students. They're like all in like one friend group together. Things again start getting very messed up, disturbed, and murdery. It's very messed up. Of course, I was there because I'm like, listen, something is smelling a lot like, oh, there's sirens outside. That's not platonic between the two of you. Okay, next is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Especially if you're in grad school, this is like the book for you. So we're following this woman. She is a historian. I think she's getting her PhD. I'm picturing like big library, old dusty books, wool coat that goes all the way to your ankles, and like foggy mornings. She is a witch, and in this world, vampire stuff like that exists, but like kind of in secret. She ends up meeting this professor, a vampire. They end up falling in love. Obviously, there's like other things that happen, but that's like the main thing. What the book was missing, 100% made my dreams come true by watching the TV show. It's like quite possibly the most atmospheric dark academia TV show I've ever seen. Like Teresa Palmer and Matthew Good are so good. There's a lot of things about the book where sometimes I read it and I like kind of cringe because I cringe really easily. Ew, like it gives me the heebie-jeebies and low-key gives me the ick. But then when I watch the show and I see Teresa Palmer and Matthew Good doing it, I'm like locked in. So definitely recommend that, and I'm definitely going to be doing that this year. The last book recommendation that I have before I get into the ones that I want to read, just a fast-paced, addictive mystery book series. It's a Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Julian Barnes. If you're ready to do like a Criminal Minds rewatch, I feel like you need to read this book series. It's like Criminal Minds, but like make it YA. There's also a love triangle in this between two boys, and no competition with me about which boy I like, but I still loved watching the love triangle. Super addictive. Like you 1,000,000% could binge read these. Next are books that I personally want to read, and maybe we can read them together. Actually, maybe we can pick one of these to be like the book club book. So if you have a preference, let me know. It's on Fable and it's free. This isn't sponsored by Fable. I just love my book club so much. I'll leave it in the description. Reach the book club. The Picture of Dorian Gray. I know that it's about a man and like art, and I think like something to do with like narcissism or something like that. Like I think that it's like he gets eternal youth, but he has his portrait painted and that painting starts aging. Low-key, like I don't know. I kind of don't want to know, and I want to be able to be like, yep, I read that. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This one I actually really do want to read because I think it's like low-key, like it's like mystery vibes. I think mystery and suspension vibes. I think we follow a main character and she ends up marrying this man. This man had a previous wife named Rebecca, and she's like not here anymore. She's like still kind of everywhere, and you like kind of see it through her point of view. I think that this character or this book also was like inspo for some Taylor Swift song. I don't know which ones, I didn't look into it that much. I kind of want to find a physical copy from like a thrift store or something. There's like hella thrift stores around here. Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman, and that entire universe. I see them everywhere, but there's so many of them that I don't know what the order is, but I feel like they're kind of all in the same universe. So if you guys know like the reading order or how they're all connected to each other, please feel free to let me know because I actually have no clue. It makes me scared to like start reading them. I feel like they're low-key like fundamentals or like classics in like fantasy or like magic books, like, and I feel like everyone's read them or at least like know of them. I really like want to know the lore. The last book, oh, I actually have a physical copy. I feel like I want to do like late fall to winter because I think that's kind of when this book starts, is like in the winter time. To me, it feels like fall. Probably because I just saw that one scene of Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet. We have to have it out, Joe. I have loved you. It's Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is a beautiful edition with like illustrations in it. I got it for $5 at a vintage store. Because of that one episode of Friends where Joey reads this, I was spoiled about like the death in this book, but I haven't watched the movie. I've seen like the marriage as an economic proposition scene. But other than that, I don't know anything else. I want to read about these Little Women because my family is literally a house of Little Women. Also, I just remembered that there are other books that I want to read, which is I want to read the Stephen King books. I have read one Stephen King book, and it was a novella that I feel like was really not the usual. I feel like this year's gonna be the year that I become a Stephen King girl. I feel like I'm not gonna read like the really scary ones. Like I know that I'm not gonna read It. Probably will not read The Shining, but the ones that I do want to read, Billy Summers, 11/22/63, Misery, because I feel like that's like a really like classic one. Low-key, I did start reading Under the Dome one time because Colin Ford is like in the TV show adaptation of it, and I never finished it. So if you guys are Stephen King girls and you have like any recommendations for me or like which books to start with, let me know because I will take your advice because I honestly don't know anything. That being said, those are all of the books on my, like Rory Gilmore's reading list. I guess it's gonna be Sunny Kim's reading list. Let me know if you've read any of these books or which books you want to read and what's on your reading list. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. You can follow me on my socials. They're all linked in the description. And I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye. Good fortune, Toby.